Hey, what's up, Sparkers? Today's video, I'm going to do a demonstration of all of the modulation pedals. So there's 10 modulation pedals that come with the Spark, and I'm going to do a quick little demonstration of each of them. I'm also going to talk before that about how all of the basic modulation effects work, so that way you kind of have an idea for how or when or why you might use some of these pedals. They all, have an effect on your sound that is basically, modulation means to adjust or modify on a sort of a repeating regular basis. And so basically it's an automated effect that does something like changes the volume or changes the pitch or does something to the phase or the frequency of the tone, sort of on a repeating or ongoing basis. And so first I'll talk about the basic types, like I said, of modulation. So one of the most basic types of modulation is called tremolo, which basically is taking the volume up and down on a repeating basis, right? So think of it like turning up and down the volume knob on your guitar repeatedly. That's tremolo. And then there's vibrato, which is basically adjusting the pitch up and down on a repeating basis. So think of this like the little whammy bar on your guitar, where you're bending the notes with just using the bar and kind of doing that in a repeated fashion up and down. That's what vibrato is. It's kind of funny because back in the day, Fender made a little bit of a mistake when they released the whammy bar, and it was called the vibrato bar, the tremolo bar, which is incorrect, right? Tremolo does volume, it doesn't do pitch, right? So they should have called it a vibrato bar, really, but most people just call it the whammy bar anyways, but that's always been a mistake, and it's kind of confused a lot of beginners over the years. But anyway, so the first, that's the first two, vibrato and tremolo, and then there's three others they're basically manipulating the signal a little bit, as opposed to the pitch or the volume. So the first of those is chorus, and what chorus does is it duplicates the original signal and adds it as with a sort of a slight delay, but it also adjusts the pitch by a varying amount. So it'll kind of, the effect is like when you hear a choir and you're hearing people sing, they'll be slightly out of pitch with one another, right? Not typically where they'll sound off key, but just slightly off pitch. So it kind of creates this duplicate sound, and it has a choral effect, right? That's why it's called chorus. And then there's flangers, which are essentially adjusting a flanger. What it does is it takes the same kind of concept as the chorus. It takes a second signal, a duplicate signal, delays it a little bit, but it adjusts on a repeating basis the distance or the time delay between the original signal and the delayed signal. So it'll sound really close to the signal, and then it'll sound a little bit farther away, and it'll kind of modulate back and forth. Kind of an interesting effect there. So essentially that's a time delay. The flanger does a time delay of the signal. And then there's a phaser, which is similar again to the flanger and the chorus pedal, where it takes a second signal and it's adjusting on a frequent basis the sort of the frequency or the signal is, think of it like taking your tone knob, similar to the vibrato, where you're moving up and down your volume knob. This is like moving up and down your tone knob. So it'll kind of have this wah wah effect where you'll hear more highs and you'll hear less highs, kind of on an ongoing basis. So almost like flipping back and forth between maybe pickup settings, but doing it in a more smooth basis, right? So it kind of feels closer and then it feels farther away. Essentially, that's what phasers do. And then there's a univibe or a vibe pedal, which is a little bit like a combination of a phaser with either a chorus or a vibrato. So it'll take a delayed signal and it'll adjust the pitch, and then it'll also do that with a vibrato effect or a chorus effect, right? So these are all very interesting distinctions, the way the different modulations work, but maybe you'll see that a little bit more as we go through each of these pedals. So the first one is a tremolo. And again, this is the one that's going to bring up and down the volume. And on this one, you have two controls. You have three really. You have the speed, the depth, and the level. So the level control is the amount that you hear this effect, meaning if you drop this level all the way down, effectively the pedal is off, right? So you're not hearing the tremolo effect at all. If you have it all the way up, you are hearing only that modified sound of what the pedal is doing. You're not hearing any of the original sound. And if you have it in the middle, you're basically, kind of halfway hearing this pedal and halfway not hearing it, halfway hearing the original sound. So that's what the level does, is it essentially controls the amount of which you're hearing this pedal effect. And then the speed is how quickly the volume is going up and down in this case, right? So you'll hear it. It'll either be really quick and staccato, or it'll be a little bit more delayed, and you'll hear the up and down a little bit more slowly in between. And then the depth is just the amount of the volume, how far down you're turning it. So if you have this set all the way up, it's going to go from 0 to 10 essentially. And if you have it set all the way down, it's going to stay at 10. It's actually not doing anything to the tone. So there's actually two ways to turn this pedal on but effectively have it off. One is by having this level all the way down, so it doesn't do anything to the signal at all. And then the other is by having this depth all the way down. I'm not going to show you what that's like because it's pointless. So you're not actually hearing the effect. But let me switch this, and I'll switch it back so you can hear it at default. And this is the settings that it comes with by default, and obviously you can adjust that. But here's the tremolo pedal. So if we adjust the speed, I'm going to turn it all the way up. You'll hear it like rapid fire. And then again, this depth, if I turn this all the way up, you're going to hear it go from no volume to quote unquote full volume here. I'm going to turn this level all the way up, so this is a more exaggerated way to hear this effect. And again, if I turn this level all the way down, you're not going to hear this effect at all. So that's the same thing as having it off, right? And that goes again, same for this depth, turning that all the way down. So that's the tremolo effect. So I'm going to put this all the way up so you hear it well. And I'll do these each about halfway. So again, the point of this pedal is to hear a difference in the volume of your signal on a repeating basis, right? So you have that option to hear the sound full and then all the way gone, and if you adjust these things, right? This is the amount again of this pedal that you're hearing. This is the amount of volume that it's going up and down, 0 to 10. If you have it set halfway, it's going like 5 to 10, right? And then if you have it all the way down, it's not doing anything to the signal at all. And then this is, again, just how quickly that volume knob is being turned up and down. So that's tremolo. Next up we have, I believe, let's go to this guy here, double tap, chorus. So again, the chorus effect, what this is doing is it's taking the signal that you're playing with, it's taking the original signal you're playing with and adding a second signal that is going to be slightly out of pitch with the first one and slightly delayed as well. And so you have a couple of different control options here. The first is the effect level. So similarly to the last one, if you have this set to 0, you won't really hear this effect at all. If you have it set all the way up, then you're going to hear it pretty intensely. The rate is just the amount of, how quickly, how distant the sound is. So that second tone you hear, it's going to be how quickly it modulates, goes up and down the pitch away from the original tone. The depth is the amount with which the tone will vary, right? The pitch will go away from the original tone by higher if you set it to max, by lower if you set it to min. So that's sort of the amount of pitch adjustment you hear in that second signal. And then finally you have tone, which is essentially, you have it set to max, you get a lot of highs. You have it set to min, you get fewer highs. So let's play it with the default settings here. So you can hear that chorus change pretty well. If I increase the rate here, you'll hear that happen a little bit more quickly. difference. So if I take this all the way down, you really won't hear it much at all. So let's leave that at about the middle. We're going to take this depth all the way up. You'll hear that. Take that down. So you can hear that, how these are affecting the tone. I'm not going to really change. If I take this level all the way up, actually that'll make it the most exaggerated. I'll put these kind of in the middle here. So this tone is kind of famous from for like Nirvana's "Come As You Are," right? So yeah, that's a pretty famous use of this chorus pedal here. Oh, I forgot to say what these pedals are based off of. So that first one, the tremolo pedal, was based off of the Mad Professor Mellow Yellow, very famous tremolo pedal, and then this one is based off of the Boss CE1 chorus ensemble pedal, which is kind of one of the very first chorus pedals and one of the most famous for sure, one of the most widely used and popular. So that's how a chorus works, and then let's go to the next one, which is the flanger. So again, to recap, what the flanger does is it's going to double and delay the signal, and the amount of the delay between the first signal and the second signal is going to vary. So you're going to hear a second, tone, and it's going to be closer and then farther away and closer and farther away, back and forth on a repeating basis. So it's kind of an interesting effect. It's similar to chorus, but it's a little bit more pronounced. So let's hear what that sounds like. So let's add some mix to that. I'm going to exaggerate that. So now it's going to be you'll hear the effect the most. And then the rate is again going to be how quickly that tone is going to change. So if we take it all the way down, so if you hear it all the way up, so you hear that happening, that tone change is happening very, very quickly, right? And if we let's bring that down. If we take this depth all the way up, you'll hear how distant that second tone is. And if you take that down, there's not really much distance at all. So I'm going to kind of put this in the middle. I'll move this rate up a little bit so you'll hear this. This is a pretty pronounced effect. So again, with the flanger, what you're doing is you're doubling the signal, and then you're inserting a delay, but that delay amount is constantly varying. It's closer to the first one and the first tone, and then farther away from it. And that's what the depth there is the amount of that delay change. It's always going to change. You can't change the fact that it's going to change, but you can set the amount that it changes. And so that's how flangers work. And then next up, we have the phaser. So again, the phaser is similar. Basically, you're taking a second signal and you're modulating the tone, right? So again, think of this one as the second signal of your tone. You're taking your tone knob and moving it back and forth. And the intensity is how much you're hearing this effect again, and then the speed is how often you're turning that tone knob back and forth. So let's leave it at the default settings and just give you a sense for what this sounds like. So there you go. That's kind of that's a pretty moderate setting there, but if you increase the speed, you're going to hear that tone go up and down faster. Let's take the intensity all the way up. Now I'm going to take the speed all the way down so you can kind of hear the effect of changing the tone up and down. So if you listen closely to that, you can kind of, it almost sounds like I'm just, while I'm playing, I'm taking the tone knob from 10 to 0 and back and forth slowly, right? And then again, if you bump this up a little bit, you can hear that happening a little bit more quickly. So I like to think of that one as a slow transition between different pickup positions, or again as a rotating that tone knob back and forth. So that's what phaser does. And then next up we have, okay, so this is the vibrato. So what this is doing again is it's taking the pitch, and you're going to modulate the pitch on a repeating basis. So it's going to take the pitch and move it up and down at a certain speed and with a certain depth. So the speed, again, that's just how quickly it's happening. And the depth is how much it's changing, right? So let's play with this default setting. Sort of an intense kind of 70s vibe there, right? So if I take that speed down, you'll kind of hear it a little bit more. So it kind of sounds like I'm waving that whammy bar right there, right? So let me do this depth, and you'll hear it be more of a pronounced change. So that's how much I'm moving the whammy bar back and forth, right? It's you can pull it pretty hard or push it down pretty hard too, right? So that's what the depth is. You take that down all the way and you're not really doing it much at all. Let me take the speed up so you can hear that. Just hear it a little bit. So that's the vibrato. Again, it's imagine a whammy bar here, an automated whammy bar. So next up is the univibe. So the vibe pedal, there's two vibe pedals, but effectively what this univibe is, or any vibe pedal really, is it's a combination of a phaser, so it's taking that tone and moving it up and down quickly, and a chorus. It's taking a phaser and mixing it with either a chorus or a vibrato pedal. So you can have a phaser, do its phasing, and then you can add either chorus or vibrato effect to it. So this one's another tough one. These are all very similar in sound, right? But this makes it even more complicated because you're mixing two of these different types of sound together. But let's play it with the default settings so you can hear it. So it's doing the work of a chorus pedal and the work of a phaser pedal at the same time right there, right? It's taking a second tone and adjusting that pitch slightly, and it's also changing the tone up and down a little bit. So let's bring the speed up so you can hear it a little bit more, and the intensity. And then we'll just change this to the vibrato mode. Oops. So there you can hear that pitch warbling now, and not just the pitch being off and delayed. So that's the vibe. There's a couple more here. Let's go to the next one. This is the cloner chorus. So this is just another chorus pedal essentially. And you basically just have a rate setting, and then you have this depth setting, low and high. So let's play default, and you can hear how it sounds right out of the gate. So pretty standard chorus kind of thing. Let's take this right up here. So you hear that happening much more quickly, that tone alteration happening much more quickly. Let's change the depth down to low. We'll take that down. This is going to be a very subtle effect now. So that's the cloner chorus pedal. Oh, sorry, that cloner chorus is based off the Electro Harmonic small clone. And I forgot to go over the previous ones. The last one was the Univibe, which is based off the MGM Guitar Effects 60s Vibe Classic. And so yeah, that's one of the original Univibe pedals. And then that vibrato pedal was the BBE Mindbender. And the phaser was the MXR M107 Phase 100. And then the flanger was the Electro Harmonics Electric Mistress. And I'll put these in my the video. I'll put the text on there so you can see those from before. But anyway, let's go to the next pedal now. So this is the classic Vibe. And this guy is based off of the Voodoo Lab Micro Vibe. So similarly to the other Vibe pedal, this is basically combining the efforts of a phase pedal and a chorus pedal. So let's play this with the default settings. Let's take both the speed and the intensity up now. So you kind of get that wah 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 kind of feel with these Vibe pedals. And again, that's mixing, a vibrato and a phaser pedal essentially. This one's a vibrato and a phase pedal. So then we have two more pedals. And these are both tremolo pedals. This tremolator is sort of based off of the Demeter TRM1 tremulator. And, similar to that very first tremolo pedal, you can adjust the volume up and down quickly. And then this gives you the amount. You can do it in BPMs or not, right? So I'll show you that real quick. So now I have it on. If I adjust the speed, it's going to actually show me in beats per minute what my adjustments are. So you can go all the way down to 1, and then you can go, 1/2, all the way up to 1/32, right? So you can hear that. And if you turn this off, it's just a 1 through 10 setting, right? So let's turn it on. I'll leave it. Let me go back to default. So here's how it sounds just right out of the gate. Let's take that depth all the way up again. And let's crank the speed now. Let's show you how you can do that in beats per minute real quick. So let's say you want it in quarter. And obviously this is useful if you're doing a song in a certain time signature. You have the ability to set the speed based off of those beats per minute. So that's one of the key uses of this particular tremolo pedal. So that's cool. So let's go to this very last one, Tremolo Square. And this one gives you the same controls as before, the speed, depth, and level. And this one is based on the TC electronic pipeline. So let's hear this one with the bass settings. So this one, to me, it sounds like it has a little bit more of a of a kind of a clicky kind of, you hear each step of the volume change. So it's almost like it's kind of slowly clicking through. Let's say if you have it on, let's say maximum depth, it's going to go from 1 to 10, but you're going to kind of hear it go from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 all the way up to 10, rather than it being a smooth, slow transition in volume. So let's hear that. So you can kind of hear that it's stepping up and down. Let's turn the level all the way up to make it more pronounced. Let's take the speed up. So let's take that down a bit, so you can kind of hear that. So that depth is your control of how much you can hear the clickiness of the steps of volume change, right? So that's a kind of an interesting effect. It gives you sort of a blocky sort of sound to it. So that's the last modulation effects pedal. These pedals are pretty fun. Like I said before, it might be a little hard to hear the difference between some of these ones if you're not really used to it, or you don't know the science behind it. But hopefully I gave you a good explanation of how these different modulation effects work, and you can kind of use them to your liking. Again, the chorus pedals, there's chorus, phaser, flanger, vibrato, and tremolo, and then there's the vibe pedals, which are sort of mixtures of some of those. And yeah, these give you a lot of interesting sounds. A lot of these pedals, like the chorus and the flanger and the phasers, were famous like in the 70s and 80s. Maybe used a little bit less these days, but they're all still pretty popular, and you can find them in all kinds of different iconic songs and by iconic artists out there. So yeah, hopefully you have a lot of fun and you've learned something from this video. Thanks. Bye.